Welcome back, folks, and today I am going to show you how to make homemade fried dough with my grandma, so stay tuned, you don't want to miss this. First, I microwaved 4 cups of water until it was warm. We used distilled water since the hardness of tap water could interfere with the yeast. Then I poured 3 of the 4 cups into the mixing bowl, leaving 1 cup of warm water left over. Next, I added 3 tablespoons of sugar into that remaining cup of water. And then I added a tablespoon of yeast to the cup. If you're using yeast packages, this is the equivalent of 1.5 packages. Then I mixed the yeast mixture together and let it stand for 15 minutes. Over this time, it should foam. If it does not foam, then the yeast is bad and you want to redo it or else your bread will not raise later. While the yeast is foaming, I added 2 teaspoons of salt and 4 tablespoons of oil to the mixing bowl. Then I added 2 cups of flour into the mixing bowl. I turned the mixer on low and slowly poured the yeast mixture into the bowl. Next, I slowly added 4 more cups of flour to the mixer and let that mix for 5 to 10 minutes. Then I switched the beater to the hook attachment and added 2 more cups of flour and let that mix. After a while, I added 2 more cups of flour and let that mix for a little while longer. Next, I added 1 more cup of flour and let that mix.
Holy moly! Oh my god! Holy moly! Sorry about that.
Hey, that's just
I know.
I touch the dough. If it's still sticky, add half a cup of more flour and mix it until the dough is not sticky. Next, I took out my grandma's big cutting board, lightly floured it, dumped the dough onto it, and kneaded it a little. If your dough is sticky, you should add a little more flour with your hands.
It's really nice and smooth. This is ready to raise.
It's ready?
Yeah, to raise.
Ours was good, so now it's time to place the dough in a big kettle to raise. I coated the kettle in oil and put the dough inside, then I flipped the dough over so that all sides are covered in oil. And as per my grandma, the dough will not raise unless you bless it by cutting across.
Very important. No cross, no raise.
Also, it's good to note the kettle should be double the size of your dough so it has room to raise, and it should have a lid. Next, I placed this kettle into the oven with the light on so it's a little warm, and I allowed it to raise for 2 hours. What was that?
Your battery is low. Please charge soon.
After the 2 hours are up, take out the dough, punch it down, knead it for a little, then oil up the kettle again. Coat the dough and place it back in the oven for a second raise of about 1.5 hours.
Yep, comes right out.
Holy moly, okay, this is definitely done. Once the time's up, take the dough out, punch it down, lay it out, and knead it for a little. The dough is now done. This is a big batch of dough for just my family, so my grandma took some of the dough to make bread with, but the rest we are going to use to make fried dough. It's good to note that storing the dough can be done by either wrapping it in plastic wrap, a Ziploc bag, or even just the kettle with the lid. This dough is ready to go, but we put it in the fridge to do it tomorrow, so the next day I took out the refrigerated dough, I let it warm up on the counter to room temperature. Now it's time to prep the pan. I poured oil into the pan, and you want a lot, then turn the stove on. To test the oil temperature, drop a little piece of dough into the oil and see how it reacts. To get the dough shaped, roll the dough into a log and cut 1/4 to 1/2 inch slices. Then you're gonna stretch and oil the dough with your fingers. And when you're done, you can drop this dough into the oil. It should puff up and float to the surface. And once it browns a little, you should flip it to the other side. A quick tip, if you can see right here, I flipped this over, this is ready, but if you can see, it's like cupped, so there's like a dimple in the middle. So when you take it out, you want to take it out and make sure all the oil is off of there. And when you bring it to the drying rack, make sure you flip it over so the dimple side is facing down so that the oil can dump out of there. But when you put your sugar on, you might want to flip it back over again so the sugar can stay in there. To prep the cooling rack, we cut a heavy-duty paper shopping bag and lined a cookie sheet with it. So when the dough is done frying, use tongs and place it onto these cookie sheets. And while they're still warm, transfer them to another sheet and sprinkle it with sugar. Place all your pieces into the kettle and enjoy. Big thanks for my grandma for helping me out, and I'll see you guys at the outro. Well folks, the fried dough's done. It's time to taste test. It is so good.
Delicious.
Well folks, that's it for this video. That's how to make authentic Italian fried dough with my grandma. My grandma has one more thing to say.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
You heard her. Make sure you're subscribed, everyone, and I'll see you guys next time.